Today I'm looking at Slay the Princess, and I've heard about this game for a while now, but I never actually played it myself, and so coming into it, I realized it's basically a visual novel. I didn't actually expect that at first, like, oh, it's a visual novel, that's kind of cool. A Western visual novel, no less, so that was kind of interesting. That's fully voiced, which is a good and a bad thing, because, well, I mean, frankly, there's only two voices. There's of course a female voice for the princess, and the main voice is the narrator and also the sound of the main character. And so throughout the story, the main character will split off depending on how many different endings you get. There'll be, voice of the hero, voice of the broken, voice of the damned, voice of the cheater. And so every time you get a different ending, you get a new voice added to your psyche. And it makes sense because it's all the same, shades of the main character's consciousness. That is the same voice of the same guy, but just in slightly different inflections. But this person is not a voice actor. He's someone basically like me. He is not, he's just changing the tone and cadence and style of his voice, but he feels very low budget when he does it, which is again has a very I don't know, say like indie budget feel, I guess, to it. But was a little bit grating at first, but I kind of got used to it. The main female cast also does a really good job. She'll have two different modes where she's being really genuine and sweet, and then the other time when she's being this malevolent god. And so, the whole aspect of Slay the Princess is pretty interesting, where it's like, okay, you're on this path to go slay this princess, and there's a narrator, and you can argue and talk to the narrator and say, well, why do I have to do this? Do I really believe you? And so you have to choose who to trust. And so he says, if you don't slay the princess, she will destroy the world if she leaves the cabin. And so, of course, the big switcheroo, the big, surprising thing is that it turns out she actually is evil, right? In most cases, or in some cases. And so you have a bunch of different scenarios depending on the major decisions you take, and it forces you to replay, and it automatically resets you back to beginning, fortunately, without putting you out of the experience, to let you go and do another path. So one of your first decisions is you can go to the cabin, or you can turn around and totally leave. That'll give you a different ending and a different self. Another choice you can make is, before you go into the basement where she is, you can grab a knife or keep the knife there. Another thing you can do is, once you meet her, you can lie to her about why you're there, or you can tell the truth. And so you have all these different variations of what you can do, and depending on what you choose, you unlock different cutscenes, different scenarios, etc. And the whole, overarching thing is that, it's kind of like a multiverse of choices, and you kind of have to get all the right kinds of choices to get the very end of the game and the true ending and all that stuff. So I don't know. I honestly don't really like this game, even as a visual novel. It's just something where, point blank, oh, what if the princess is evil? And then it's just different variations of how she's evil. And then they have this whole thing where you're actually a monster, because when you see your own hand, it's some kind of weird law, ogre, orc, bird thing. So there are some interesting concepts here about the mirror, the self, the fact that you find out who you really are, or who your true identity is. What is the secret world, or the nascent dark, or whatever it's called, where exactly you are, why you were created, where what the princess actually is, and what these scenarios actually serve a purpose for. And so the overall arching idea behind everything is kind of cool, but the build up to that and the payoff just feels, I don't know, a bit off, a bit rudimentary, I guess. And a lot of the scenarios were, I thought, okay, this is kind of cool, and now she's a different, more evil version of herself. But I didn't feel there was a lot of depth to her character. There was a deep character, but it was kind of like she's evil, and there's not a different real shade of her. I mean, we see her innocent side, but it's just like, oh, she's just acting innocent until she betrays us, and she's evil in this way and evil in that way. In section, she's a ghost. In another section, she's a damsel. There are some endings where you don't even fight her at all, where you end up getting chained up yourself and waiting till the end of infinity, until the walls crumble and time just passes super quickly. So there are a bunch of different kinds of endings and scenarios, and so it's all the different um, styles of endings that you can do with this very simple scenario where you have a guy sent to murder her who is uncertain of it, and she's in the basement, and all the different ways that that could go wrong and how that scenario can play out. There's one where you try to not kill her at all, and the narrator takes control of your body and forces you to attack her. And then there's a certain scenario where you can even fight against the narrator, and then you hand over the knife to her and she kills you. So it's a bunch of different things, and I think even from a basic visual novel gameplay perspective, it's actually very fun to mess around with the technology, or the different paths rather, and mess around and kind of see, oh, how many different endings can I get. And what's really nice about the beginning of the game, it says there are no right or wrong endings. There's only the endings that, and the decisions that you make. There is no right or wrong choices. And so everything is essentially, you know, made for the purpose of experimentation. And there are a lot of scenarios where either you can kill the princess or kill yourself or leave. Usually leave isn't there, but it's either kill yourself or kill her. Once you realize that after your first death, basically, you can't die, or you just respawn in a new dimension. And once you get all the dimensions collected together, then of course you get the final ending, or you can even get it earlier than that by choosing the right snare and the right pathway. And as it shows you in the options menu, there's all the different scenarios and artwork that you don't unlock unless you get all those different endings, and even different scenarios and dialogue options in those different areas. And of course, the only issue is that you have to remember your right choice path to get back to where you were, to get all the missing things that you could possibly get. So overall, I guess I like the game. I just don't... I don't know, I'm not crazy about it. It's fine, but it feels, and I like the concepts and I like a lot of the scenarios, but honestly, it feels just very shallow to me for some reason. Just different ways that the princess betrays you, different ways, that you get betrayed. I just didn't really vibe with it. I don't know. I just thought it was very, not exactly predictable, but it just was like, okay, that's a cool scenario. But just the tone of the game is very kind of negative, very morose, very dark, without any kind of higher meaning attached to it, even though it tries to pull that out near the end. That you were essentially put into this loop in order to defy death, if if you killed her in this scenario. So there's some like higher concepts here, but I just felt like it was very negative and poorly drawn out and explained. And so overall, I was just disappointed with this game. I played it for, a couple hours, got one of the main final endings, and credits rolled, and I thought, I don't really care to do the rest of the game or the different scenarios. And for me, I just decided I'm just done. And yeah, so I mean, there's the game. I don't know much else to say about it, and that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys later. Bye.